So today we're going to review the concept of conflict in literature. And as I walk you through this, I'd like you to take some notes. So please take out your notebook and open that to a fresh page. And I've included for you a sample of what your notes might look like. They don't have to look exactly like this, but I'd like you to label the page conflict. Leave space where you can define what a conflict is, and a space below that where you can jot down the 6 different types that we will talk about. Please leave room as you take your notes today as well, because we might be adding to these in class as we discuss a little bit. You'll notice I made a grid with 6 boxes. That's a fine way to do it, or if you want to just go down the page, that's fine as well. So once you're ready with that, continue on with our video and jot down some notes with the definition of the types of conflict. So conflict is the problem or struggle that a character faces in a story. And you'll notice I put an S in parentheses after problem or struggle, because oftentimes in stories, especially longer ones, we have many, many, many problems or struggles. And the trick ultimately when we talk about the conflict of a story is thinking about the overarching one. Which one guides the whole plot and guides the little ones that even occur within that main one. So I know that that's a little confusing perhaps, but that's why we're going to work on it. Before we can get into conflict too much, I need to make sure that you remember 2 different types of characters. One is the protagonist and the other is the antagonist. And protagonist, if you think about the word pro, is usually something you're in favor of. So the protagonist is typically the main character, because this is a person in the story who's faced with the big conflict. Usually this is the hero or the good guy or the person that we're rooting for. The antagonist, on the other hand, is the opposing character or force. This is the person or the thing that's causing the problems for the protagonist. So often this is the villain or the bad guy in a story. So conflicts are going to fit under 2 main headings, external and internal conflicts. And external conflicts, if you think about what the word external means, these are conflicts that occur between a character and an outside force. So they're occurring outside of the body. And this will include 5 of the ones that we'll talk about. So man versus man versus nature, man versus society, man versus technology, and man versus fate. Now, I wrote these as man versus, however, sometimes you'll see it as character versus or person versus, and it's important that you can shift your thinking and recognize that they're all referring to the same thing. So man versus man conflict is when 2 characters are in opposition. One character has a problem with another character in the story. Now, I'm not going to provide a lot of examples as I walk through these, because your job, when you finish this video, will be to help provide some examples we can talk about in class. However, remember that this could be between the protagonist and a couple people and still be considered man versus man. So if the protagonist upsets 2 of his friends, we would still lump them together, and that would fit under this heading. The second external conflict we're going to talk about is man versus nature. So this is between a character and a force of nature. Perhaps a blizzard occurs, or they're being chased by a lion, or trying to survive a contagious disease. All of these things that are naturally occurring but are causing difficulty for a protagonist. The next one is man versus society, and this is when the character, the protagonist, has a problem with the society in which he or she lives. So perhaps they don't agree with a law, or they are going against the common beliefs or norms of a group. Therefore, they're going against what society deems as appropriate, and we have a man versus society conflict. The next one is man versus technology. This one we have a lot in our lives now because we're so rooted with technology. And it's pretty self-explanatory. When a character might struggle with a machine or with an iPhone or with a computer or a car breaking down, these would be examples of man versus technology. And the last external conflict we have is man versus fate. So this is when a character is trying to break away from his or her destiny, his or her fate or predetermined path. We may not all believe in fate or destiny, However, oftentimes we see this in literature where they are predetermined to become something or to follow in a particular path, and they're trying to break away from this. The last conflict we'll talk about is man versus self, and this fits under the heading of an internal conflict because it's a struggle within a character. It's taking place inside the character's body. Typically, it's a struggle to make a decision or to figure out how to behave or react in a certain situation. So the character is struggling with him or herself in order to figure out which way to go or who to be in this particular instance. Okay, so we've reviewed the types of conflict. You took some notes on them. The next thing you're going to do is open our classroom slideshow and find the slide that already has your name on it. You'll find some directions at the top as well, and your job is to insert an image or a text that will help depict the concept labeled on your slide. So for instance, I might open it and it says protagonist example. Well, my job then would be to write out in words who a protagonist might be and why this person is a protagonist. I might have protagonist image, and then I'm trying to come up with a visual representation that could help the class remember or better understand what a protagonist is. There are some at the bottom that ask you for you to either write a couple sentences to illustrate a conflict or to provide a picture even to illustrate a conflict. So be sure to read your slide and make sure that you're following the directions provided for you. These will be shared with the class, and you might be responsible for explaining or justifying what you chose with the class, so make sure that you can do that as well.